Endless Evolution is a community engaged in the exploration of human experience. We engage with one another to understand our unique paths. We talk, we laugh, we heal, and we invite others to share this journey with us. Won't you join us? Endless Evolution.
So many humans, and where's the humanity?
Hey, gentlemen, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Getting the energy, going
Getting the
here.
energy
I love
up.
it. I love it.
Yes,
I love it.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm doing good. How y'all doing?
Good. Good to see y'all
Almost the end
again.
of the week again. Another
Yes.
week. These weeks are going fast, y'all. These weeks are
Beautiful
going
weather.
fast.
It's
Beautiful
hot.
Yes,
weather here. Beautiful
Yeah.
weather there. Beautiful weather here too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's good to be here, y'all.
Yeah. And
Absolutely just good to be here.
excited to welcome everybody back to our podcast, Endless
Right.
Evolution.
Yeah.
Today's a special day because we're really starting to dive into making sure that we're inclusive of all of you. And we're going to be sharing voices of some of our listeners and friends and family as we talk through today's episode around emotion and around creation. And so we're really excited. And in honor of Mother's Day that just passed, right, we wanted to make sure to elevate the voices of women in our lives because they are the source of creation for all of our humanity. And so
Absolutely.
today we're going to be listening to, as I said, some of our friends and family and listeners as they share their thoughts and feelings around emotion and what they're doing with those emotions during these times. So I'm so excited to be able to integrate voice of our families and our friends and hear what they have to say.
Yeah. Definitely some good
Yeah.
voices coming in. That you'll hear if you're listening. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow us on the platforms. Do whatever you have to do to hear us. We're there, Endless Evolution, and so yeah, let's do it, y'all. Let's do our thing.
Absolutely. I'm
All right.
looking forward to it. Looking forward
Yeah, yeah. So who is? Oh,
I think
Aaron.
you're kicking us off, Spence,
I
right?
think Aaron.
I think
Oh,
so.
Aaron's kicking us off. All right.
Yeah, I
I,
think
I,
Aaron is kicking us off.
I think so.
So each one of us had a set of questions to ask our friends and family, and then we recorded them. And so Aaron's going to start us off by
All right.
sharing that first question and then giving a little bit of intro into what we're going to be listening to.
And so just to tee this up just a little bit, I I approached this maybe that's the way I understood it. I don't know, but I approached it as an interview rather than just asking the question. So actually, I asked the question about how you're feeling at this moment in time. Like, what emotions are you feeling? And so you'll hear a little bit of banter back and forth. We're not going to listen to the whole thing, but just the piece of it where my wife, Tiffany, answers the question. All right.
All right, so I'm going to hit Tiffany. We're going to hear her voice next.
So my name is Tiffany Johnson. I am an African American living in an affluent area, right outside of Metro Detroit. I am 48 years old, married for almost 23 years, and have beautiful children, who are now no longer in the home. So I am a empty nester with my husband. And at the same time, I'm also a teacher of 24, close to 25 years, in both English social studies as well as interventionist and alternative education.
Okay. When you think about the times that we're in, some might even perceive them as tumultuous or anxiety producing. When you think about the times that we're in politically, what's the predominant emotion or what's the first emotion that comes to mind when you think about what's going on around our country and around the world?
I think the first emotion would be worry. And I think as a history teacher, I think back on our past, the decisions that were made, how people were treated, And I see a correlation with what we are experiencing now. So it develops, I guess a sense of worry that it could go back to a very strong, dominant culture ruling over everyone without any of the marginalized people being able to have a voice in society. I think about some of the newer executive orders that President Trump has put into place. And although surface level, someone reading it can say, oh, these are great things for our country, but at the same time, there are underlying hidden agendas. And some of them are just plainly there if you continue to read more in depth into the executive orders. So there's definitely a sense of worry, obviously a sense of anxiousness, because I truly believe that past can impact the future, or we can actually see it happening again, or I guess a reoccurrence of it.
I appreciate you sharing that. What do you think people can do, or maybe not what people can do? What is it that you do to help kind of keep that worry at bay, or what do you do to continue to make sure that you are not just taking care of yourself, because that's important to take care of yourself, but what are some things that you can do to maybe encourage people to push back against or really just continue to assert their humanity in the times that we're facing, which seeks to like dehumanize us? What are some things that you can do or that you do, or what are some things that you might encourage other people to do?
So I guess as an individual, I have my faith that allows me to somewhat stay hopeful that, this hopefully it's only 4 years of President Trump with this administration, but whomever goes into office, whether it's a Democrat, Republican, or the like, that we have a hope that the people will come back or resurface as the most important mission, and that America is safe for everyone. Everyone has a voice. Everyone is protected. Everyone it's just freedoms that we've will hope for, freedoms and continued freedoms as opposed to repression or oppression. I also take the news in chunks. I don't typically watch a whole lot of the news on the television just because it could be quite stressful. I might find myself now more reading the news as it comes through to take out people's voices. So it's just as I'm reading it, it's in my voice because it can become overwhelming. I do actually do a lot of meditation, but also I try to live my life that there is hope. So when I am discussing different things that happened or events that have happened in the world currently with students, I try to not necessarily paint a horrific picture, but that we are always to be ready to protest, which is our right under the Constitution and First Amendment, to protest when we do not agree with something that we see going on or happening. I also believe that people should not only just get out and protest, but I think they should also be willing to stand up against that government. Maybe that is a letter to government, because these people are voted in by us. We have that right to vote people out that don't have the citizens' interest at heart. And then we expect those voted members or people who have voted into office to then support our needs. And that may be not passing laws or just checking the president as he goes. I'm not sure if that's answering your question.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I want you to, and this is going to be my last question, I want you to just talk a little bit about, you said what you do, and the first thing that you talked about was taking hold of your faith or meditating or making sure that you're well connected to your faith base. And then you mentioned students. Um, what's one thing that because on this podcast, we're all educators or former educators. And so we have a connection to students in ways that many others may not have that connection to them. What would be one thing that you would encourage, and I think you touched upon it just a little bit, that you would continue to encourage students to do to find their place in this world? Because this is a different world now than when we grew up, and then it's a different world from when our parents grew up and grandparents and so on and so forth. So as you can sort of see backwards and forward, what would be one thing that you would encourage students to do to prepare for this new world they're about to move into?
Well, obviously not going into anything faith-based with them, but having them truly understand the importance of their voice. So in voting, I want them to be educated. I want them to be knowledgeable of who the persons are that they're voting for. Maybe even do a ton of background into past laws and that they may have those in elected positions may have voted in the past. I also believe that students should be very leery of news and also whatever they see on social media, those different types of avenues, only because it is so biased. And I want them to be able to take a clear look at what is actually being said or proposed. So do a lot of reading on not just proposals and laws, but also backgrounds on who they're actually voting into office. Also, again, being ready to protest. I think this particular generation of students are really involved more in their communities in terms of social justice. So still staying on that platform as well for things in which they believe. They've done a lot more in terms of community service. They've done a lot more in terms of being mindful, but I also want them to be a little bit more empathetic and understanding of other groups of people. So it's not just kind of centered only on them.
Yeah, I think those are really good suggestions for students, particularly because they're our next generation of voters, of politicians, of creators, of teachers, of people who will help to move the society forward and in many cases save it from itself. And so I think those things that you mentioned, voting, being knowledgeable, being prepared, being willing to protest in whatever way that looks like, because it doesn't look the same for everybody.
Absolutely.
For some people, you know, going out and physically protesting is their thing. For some people, writing, or you said something about writing a letter, or, you know.
Or even social media at this point could be an avenue.
Social media for sure, because the word gets spread, you know, exponentially just off of one particular post. And, you know, there may be other ways to protest. Some people protest with, you know, with their silence. You know, we were going through this whole thing with Target. Like, we're saying to Target, we're not participating. Nobody went up in Target and, you know, bum rushed the doors and stole everything out. But we're protesting with our silence by saying we're not going to participate. If you don't respect us as people, we're not going to participate in your in your endeavor. And so I think there are different ways to do that. And I think you mentioning expressing to students and expressing to other people that it doesn't have to look like one way is very important, because, you know, some people think they may not be doing anything, and if they're not, tearing up the streets or going out and with flags and all of that. Well, that's good, and there's a place for that. It's just not a place for everybody, and so yeah, helping students to understand that is key.
And it could be too, and just assisting with some of those organizations that do protest or lobby against what they deem that shouldn't be put into place. So for instance, whether it's money, time, maybe just going in and assisting that particular organization in any way might be just as helpful as writing the letter or actually protesting out in the street as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time. I don't know how much you know about what's going on with the podcast. It's growing. So we have some listeners who are really impacted by some of the things that we talk about, and we just really try to talk about things that are authentic, and it's not super scripted. We do have a show where we plan it out, but it's not super scripted. We just talk about our feelings about what's going on in the world today, and hopefully those things can be used to help other people navigate and heal and grow and change and become the people that they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
All right. Aaron, I thought that was wonderful.
It's interesting. Like when we talked about this a little bit, we talked about like when the three of us talked about this a little bit, like it turned into this really intimate conversation that we hadn't had in a while, because a lot of times we're like debating, or we're, maybe taking separate sides of an issue, or it's mainly just me like venting, and so to have this conversation where, that all of that was lifted and we're just sitting down having a conversation, was that in and of itself was a good thing. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed this exercise too, to go out and find folks that, might be able to answer a question a certain way, or who might even disagree with us personally, but that we can honor their voices, because that's what we're all about. We're about honoring the voices of others, and we don't always have to agree. We just ask that you listen, that you empathize, that you do your best to understand other folks. So just one thing, and I know that was pretty long, but I'm just going to say one thing that stood out for me in talking to Tiff about this, and then I'll shoot it all over to you all. That it, even though she started with this concept of worry, the idea of hope, and that's rooted in her faith and the faith that we share, that when her and I have these conversations all the time. Like, yes, we get worried about certain things, but we, we're not as, in some cases, we're not as um, impacted personally. We empathize with other people who are impacted personally. We're not as impacted personally as other folks might have, and so we try our best to remember that, but lean heavily into our faith and helping us to kind of just think clearly about certain things, and we know that we think clearly, that's when we can help other people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what stood out for me too about her comments, were, we're really trying to surface, right, through these conversations and through this exercise, how are people emoting, and what are they doing to make it their way through the world on a daily basis with their emotions, and what are they creating? And I heard very clearly that her intentional action with students is a way that she hangs on to hope, and that she helps create, right? Create opportunities for them, create possibilities for them, create hope for them, right? So that they don't get so distraught and live in a space of despair. And I love that it's really important for us to hang on to this idea that, of course, it's human to be frustrated and angry and sad and worried and stressed out, particularly when we feel like either we're under attack or those a lot around us are under attack. But what are we doing to make sure that that's not what we're putting forward, right? How are we making sure that we're not just reacting to that all the time, but that we're intentionally taking a beat, right? And she said she talked about meditation and breathing in and thinking about these things, taking a beat to say, okay, what can I put out there and what can I help create moving forward so that we're not just in this cycle of, you know, repetition of being reactionary to everything horrible that's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And I loved it for a few different reasons. I mean, I love that she's a teacher, and I was a teacher for almost the same amount of time in Detroit, and a history teacher as well, social studies teacher. And to your point, Naomi, about hope with the students, like when you teach something, it reinforces it for you. You know, it gives you help. It's impossible. It gives you, you know, more energy. It's impossible to like teach without learning to. And so the more you say it, the more it reinforces it for you. And then there's all of us being educators. You know, there's this sense of we are models. We know that students are watching us. We know that children are watching us. We know that our students are watching us. And so I was really inspired by that. And I was also inspired by you talking with Tiffany, you know, and what it did for you all collectively, what it did for you, and what it did for her, right? Because she had a chance to give voice to what she was feeling, and you were listening. And so it took you all to another level. And then, you know, I thought of the role play type of sense of,
Yeah.
in the sense that you're an educator and she's responding, but it opened up a whole new world. And I'm sure y'all will still do it. And I'm inspired.
Absolutely.
And I will do it with Erica as well, because we have conversations, but that is specific, you know, a specific way to do it
Yeah.
that really opens that up, man. And I
Yeah.
heard you say that you've heard some things that you might not have otherwise heard in that space right there in that moment. So I thought it was great. Thank her for us.
Yes.
Kudos to both of y'all.
And
I
it created
certainly will.
intimacy, Aaron.
It
You
did.
said
It
that. And
did.
so, you know,
It
we all
did.
need more intimacy in our
No doubt we
Absolutely.
can
all
never
the
get
time.
enough.
So, yes.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think it's great.
You're right about that. It just, I'll say this last thing and I'll shut up. It, uh, one of the things that really struck me about this that she talked about, and I don't think it got recorded. She talked about meditating with her students. She's talked about playing calm music when they come in to like kind of soothe their nervous systems a little bit. And she said they come in quietly and they, you know, they're able to write, they're able to focus, they're able to do. And so those little things, so when we talked about those different conceptions of what protest is, it doesn't
Right.
always have to be out on the street. You can protest by doing several different things. And when she spoke about, and I don't want to necessarily consider that protest, but when she spoke about like all of these things that she helps her students be able to do so they can process better, so they can heal more. I think that's just phenomenal that it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing.
Yeah, and the small things, right, make a big difference, right? That butterfly effect that's so popular right now.
Yes.
That when you make those small changes, it does grow into something that's
Yes.
big and beautiful and you know, impactful for so many people. And I think reclaiming or not even reclaiming, but holding on to our humanity in those ways of music and meditation is a way to protest, but it's a way to
Yes.
create doing it and not
Yes.
in reaction to all of that, but just saying, I'm still going to be a
Yes.
centered whole human,
Absolutely.
regardless of all the noise around me, right? So
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
amazing. That's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we lob it over to Spence now to take us to
Oh,
the next section.
all right. Well, you know, my question was how are you dealing with, and I say how are you navigating your emotions really during this time, you know, not just what you're feeling, but how are you navigating and what's the journey of that navigation? And so I had a chance to ask two people that question. The first person is my cousin Les. And so you'll hear her talk about how she's navigating and what she feels at first. And so it's just we'll talk about it afterwards, but I really want us to hold space for us because I know she appreciated the question and the opportunity to give voice because I don't know that she otherwise would have done that or had the opportunity. So this next voice you'll hear is Les, my cousin Les.
All right, here we go.
Hey, Spencer. Based on our conversation yesterday, I just wanted to say, as a parent of a transgender child, well, first let me say that this has not been easy for me to accept, as this is my only child, and me recognizing my struggle to really accept their lifestyles because I've been fearful of how they would be treated or perceived or received in this world. And as any parent, you try to protect your child from any form of hurt, harm, or danger. So the hatred that so many people have for something that they actually don't even understand or even try to understand has been very frightening. And with this current political climate, this administration has declared an open season of hatred on the LGBTQ community. And so it's been very frightening for me. And although speaking with my child, they seem to be unfazed, but that's a whole Gen Z type situation. So they have a different kind of mindset than I do. But I've become more fearful knowing and noticing that transgender murders, I did a study for one of my classes, has like doubled in the last 4 years. People just openly target individuals because of their lifestyle. So it's very frightening. And then with this current administration pulling rights and laws that protect the LGBTQ community, it's very frightening for me. And so I, as a parent, kind of have a certain fear about it. So, but I don't talk to my child to make them fearful, because I just try to make sure that they're okay and see if there's anything that I can do to support them, and make sure that they understand that I love them. But yeah, it is a frightening time with all of this going on. So thank you and for this opportunity to share, and I hope this helps. Have a great day.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll just say something really quick, and so we can hear your thoughts. I just appreciated it because her and I, and you talk about intimacy, Naomi, our relationship went even a little deeper, for me to ask the question and um, for her to really be eager to answer. And listening to it, I know her more. I know her, we've been knowing each other for, you know, grew up together. And
Right.
so to know her even a little more and hear her heart and hear her fears and hear her humanity, was a real blessing for me.
Yeah, similar to Tiff, right? She had a fear or
Yeah.
worry, right? Like
Yeah.
what we associate with negative emotion or
Mhm.
um and yet she's not creating and holding that space for her child, which is
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
She's holding a space of love and acceptance for her child,
Right.
which in this world and given what she laid out, right, that it's an
Right.
open season on LGBTQ people, but also particularly on transgender people,
That's
it
right.
really is so amazingly important for her to be creating that space for her child.
Yes.
It's somebody who works a lot with those populations and
Yeah.
and supports a lot of organizations. I'm a board member of organization, statewide organization here in Michigan that does a lot of work to create safe spaces for
Mhm.
LGBTQ youth, right? Like one of the most determinant factors of success as well and adaptation and thriving lifestyle for anyone in the
Right.
LGBTQ community, but particularly transgender community, is that acceptance and love from home.
Mhm.
When that exists, it's not that all of the other things disappear, but somehow they're rooted and strong enough to figure out how to move forward when that unit is strong. So kudos
Yeah.
to Les and
Yes.
her love and the creation of the love for her child.
Absolutely. And I've never met Leslie, but I can just hear, I don't know, there's something about her spirit that came through that recording. I can I can hear that the calmness and the worry, if that makes any sense. Like, while this maybe it doesn't need to be said, or maybe it does, um, no one, no other human being should be attacked for any reason regarding their gender, their sexuality, how they, who they choose to love, no one. So I want to say that up front. But particularly when it's your child that may be facing that, I think, and again, I can't speak for Leslie in this regard, but I think it is going to hit different. Like you want your child, you don't want that for anybody, but you particularly don't want it for your child. And so the fact that she was able to experience that and understand it and accept it, and as parents, we may not fully let go of our children. Um, but we get to a point of acceptance. We get to a point of really just trusting them. And I felt like when she was talking, she had decided to trust
Mhm.
them with their life, who they choose to love, what they choose to do, and still love them anyway. And I don't know, it just came through that way to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I was really, really moved by the ease at which, I think it just needs to be said, the ease at which in which Les addressed her child in the correct pronouns, they and them. Because as you can imagine, if you live with someone who had different pronouns and now, and you've been used to saying this, and then the ability to surrender enough and love enough and respect enough to use those correct pronouns, they and them, is just an evolving thing for her and for all of us. And she modeled that for us today. Last thing I'll say, um, it shows too, I think we talked about this, that you don't necessarily have to understand everything to love someone and to respect someone and to
Yes.
hold the space for their humanity and their rights and their full being for being here. And so that is not a prerequisite to understand everything, completely before we do that.
Right.
And then because of that love, then all the other stuff comes because you surrender your own lens and your own stop centering your own experience or your own identity. So kudos to her. Kudos to her. Yeah,
For
that was a
sure, and
blessing. Yeah,
I think all of what you said is so profound and so
yeah,
true, and not to
yeah,
make light of it, but
yeah,
as a society, I think we
yeah,
all need to lean into getting comfortable and accepting and respecting other people's choices about themselves. You don't have to agree with it, you don't
yeah,
have to love it,
yeah.
but you can be a
That's right.
respectful
Yes.
person towards it.
Yeah,
And billions of people are doing it
yeah,
right now with Pope
yeah.
Leo, right? He wasn't Pope
Yes.
Leo last week.
That's right.
Yes.
And we snapped on a dime and started calling him something else
Yes.
without any hesitation.
That
So
part right
if
there.
we
That
can
part right
just
there.
respect human beings, you don't have to agree. You don't have to love, but
Yeah,
like, come on, let's not make
yeah.
this more difficult than it is.
Right.
And let's not use our own, oh, but my tongue gets all tied up. Mistakes are mistakes, but you can
Mm.
put an effort forward.
Yeah,
Billions have done it for Leo. We can
yeah,
do it for
yeah,
our loved ones
yeah.
and
I love
and
that
those in our
correlation.
society, right?
It's
I
So
love it. I'm stealing that, Naomi.
oh,
I'm
I'm
stealing
not the
that.
first one who said it, so but honestly, it's something we got to think about. All right, Spencer, I think you had a second person, right, as well?
Yes, yes. So the second person is a dear, dear friend of mine, my sister Camille. You meet people, and some people you meet, and you know that you knew them either in a different space, another life. You're connected by the soul and the spirit, and so Camille is also going to talk, and she really says some profound things as well about what she's feeling, how she's navigating. So. The next voice you hear is my dear sister, Camille.
And I believe as it comes up, we have her in two parts, so we're going to listen to
Yes.
both
Okay.
recordings.
My feelings and processing what's happening right now and how we're responding to it, how we're creating community, if we are creating community. and those feel like such loaded questions. Creating space for myself and others. Well, right now I actually am volunteering at a transitional homeless shelter for men in High Point. How I'm feeling is probably the most difficult. I think it fluctuates day. I just got off a 30-day social media fast. Really, I think that the easiest response is it's complex. And I think the emotions are complex because they wean from one extreme of anger and fear and anxiety to one of planning, being strategic, thinking, what I do if something really terrifying happens. But I think the emotions are all over the place. It is like I know what PTSD feels like, and so it doesn't feel like that to me, but the emotions that are coming and weaning back and forth, I think it feels as erratic as if I was in a PTSD crisis. But I think in between all of that, my grandson keeps me grounded in the day-to-day because he's 5, and that's what children do. They pay attention to flowers and the pollen and their video games and their cartoons and what they want to eat. So I think my emotions are everywhere. It's from fear to anxiety to uncertainty to rage to really thinking strategically or thinking clearly about how I would protect myself if something was to happen. I am not an open carry person, but I do have weapons in my home. Prior military, it feels almost like it would be crazy not to. I don't carry it with me when I go out. I'm with my grandson most often. Even in the house, it's really out of reach. So thinking carefully about what really would happen if I have to go and reach for a gun with my grandson. I think that's where my brain is, and I think part of that is being in the military. Part of that is occupying spaces. Even now, where I'm around people that are non-white, non-black, not color, and knowing how violence is really it's a response for them. I'm also an immigrant. I'm also a woman. And I'm also living in a place where I'm not close to my family, my children, and Lakai's Pop, my ex-husband. So I don't know what I'm feeling is a lot of things. I don't know if I could put it on a succinctly, but I think there is definitely a lot of anxiety overall. Anxiety about doing the right thing, anxiety about responding the right way, anxiety about resources, anxiety about all these things. And I don't know if that's different from any other time. I think it's just much more heightened now. I'm much more aware of possibilities of things going wrong. But there are days when I feel like I'm lulling myself.
All right, so now I'm going to keep going with her second part so we can hear the full response.
What am I creating in spite of all this anxiety? I think hope. I can't move away from it. I don't I believe, in spite of everything that's happening nationally and globally, I am terrified of what I see happening in the government. And I'm terrified of what I see happening in Palestine. I'm terrified of what I see how women, I mean, there's a lot of terror and anxiety around that. But I'm also breathing. I've taught my children to fight back. My sisters and my sister and I, we talk about this all the time, about our grandchildren and what we're inspiring in them. And it's not a passive acceptance of what's going on. And I think that's about hope. I think that's about believing in something greater is possible. Maybe that's part of the immigrant story. Maybe that's part of a Black women's story. Maybe that's part of the African story, the diaspora story. I'm not sure. Maybe it's part of my personality, but I do feel a need to hold on to hope, the need to think about things in a hopeful way. And that's what I guess keeps me grounded. That's what I'm creating with others in conversation, is hope. I know that sounds flimsy, but it is what it is right now. It's hope. In spite of the anxiety, in spite of the fear, the doubts of what's going to happen, how I need to care for myself, where the resources. I mean, hope is what wakes me up in the morning. It's what helps me to go to sleep at night. It's when I play with my grandson, that's what I see and that's what I feel. And so I think that's what I'm creating with others. I'm creating within myself is a clear sense of hope. And sometimes it feels naive, but it also sometimes it feels like it is the realest thing that I could do, is to be hopeful, is to remain hopeful, to remain optimistic, to remain present, not to live in some type of fairy tale about how everything's going to be okay. It really is about being in the reality of today, right now, and still hold on to this idea that good is going to win. Yeah. And so that's what's happening right now for me. That's what I'm feeling right now. It's a lot of anxiety. It's a lot of uncertainty. It's a lot of thinking forward and thinking broad about what to do, how to do it, where to do it, who to do it with. But underneath all of that is the sense that in spite of all the BS that's happening in the world, in spite of all these white men and their fear and their greed and their arrogance and their lack of emotional intelligence, I come from a community of people who are constantly, doggedly hopeful. And so that's what I'm creating. That's what I hold on to. That's what I feel when I'm with my grandson. So I don't know if it's the answer, but it is where I'm at right now, is I am anxious, thinking about the future. I'm really attached to the present in terms of day to day, but all of that is under the umbrella of hope. And that is what keeps me going. That's what makes me get up. That's what makes me feel like it may not be okay right now, but things are going to be okay. And so I appreciate this question and this response. I hope it's been helpful. Sorry I had to do it in 2 parts, but I think, I believe God is hope. God is love. God is in the day-to-day. God is in my anxiety. God is in my fears. And I think that's part of being fully human, not to give up, not to allow the terror that stalks us by day and night to consume our every move. But it is to come into the realization that God is a part of what's happening right now. and and not to fear, because God's love casts out fear. And so, and that to me is what hope is about. And that realization that I am not alone in this. God is ever present. So
Well, Camille said a mouthful.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Hearing that again, man, it's just, you know how you hear something again and like, why, how did I miss that the first time?
Yeah,
I
I
don't want to
mean,
jump in there before it's my turn, but like
I know.
that's just amazing.
Spence, you're muted, but so you can keep talking. We can try and read your lips, or you can come off mute.
No, I was saying, go ahead. You all go ahead. Please, 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 please. I mean,
Go
I
ahead,
got plenty
Aaron.
of thoughts, but I just think
Jump in.
want to hear yours.
She, so when when she first started talking, it was about like her fear, her anxiety, but like when she started talking about her rage, and I didn't get like I look at anger and rage as two different things, and maybe it's just the difference is negligible, but she wasn't talking about anger, so to speak. She was talking about rage and rage that was righteously applied to where it needed to be applied. And it made me think about um, Audre Lorde's piece about how her anger was righteous. Um, and we have the right to feel that. And just talking about her grandson, like the hope that I'm assuming that she has for him when she's looking at him and she said she's thinking about the present a lot, but like when she looks at him, it allows her to think about the future and gives her that hope. And it just, man, there was so much. I mean, I took notes, but it was just so much um human emotion there. Like and we always try to classify ourselves as being one thing in a moment or one way. She talked about all the ways, like, and
Right.
that just made her just even that more human. I feel anger. I feel rage. I feel fear. I feel anxiety. I'm strategic in my thinking. Like, I feel, terrified at times. I wrote those adjectives down. Like,
Yeah, terrified, but not going to succumb and be a victim to that
yes,
terror, right?
Mhm.
And recognizing divinity in every emotion. Like
yes,
that is powerful, right? Like
yes,
how do we recognize that all of this is our divinity and our humanity in concert with each other? And to be human is to be angry. To be human is to be terrorized sometimes. To be human is to be joyful. And um, it does not mean that you've been forgotten or left behind. It
Yeah,
means that if you're truly going to experience your full humanity, you experience all of those things, right? And really channeling into the youth. Like I hear a through line, right? And I think it will continue when we listen to my responses too. But like you have Tiffany focusing on the students and the
mhm.
voice of the youth. You had Les focusing on her child and their truth, right? And living in their truth. And now I heard so much of Camille focused on her grandson, right? And her grandchild, and really fostering that relationship and making sure that when she said she's talking with her friends and sisters about the raising of their children, right? And of their grandchildren, and how making sure that they're being raised in community and understand their own power and their own joy and their own humanity is so key to staying in the present and retaining that hope so that they can be creating hope for them as well. Like, wow, like how much can we all learn from actually channeling our despair and fear and anxiety and terror into the youth and the hope that they represent for us as a society, as a people, and as a humanity. Like, it's just powerful.
It is. It is. I met Camille. Camille and I were in seminary school together, right? So we met in a place where it was spiritual, so to speak, that those conversations started. And so it was just a pleasure, real treat to hear her journey because as you listen to the first one and the second one, it was like she was taking a journey. She talked about
Mhm.
her fear, she talked about anxiety, and then near the end, she, talked about that divinity. Naomi, right? She was talking about the God is in everything.
Yeah.
Divinity is in everything. And certainly you don't need to be in seminary to affirm your divinity. You don't even, for me, you don't even have to be in the church. You don't have to be a member of his,
Right.
divinity is right here where you stand. And so for her to tap into that while she was answering, I could feel her progression. I could feel her healing and affirming even to herself, and she was doing it. And so, I mean, for anybody who's listening, it is the power of asking questions and being able to ask people questions and be curious about how they're doing and how they're feeling, and for them to give voice to it is healing in itself. So
Creating space, like she created in that
she
journey
created
her
space.
own
She did.
like
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
and that's amazing to witness, and you can
Yeah.
only witness that
Yeah.
in others when you
Yeah.
engage in that dialogue and that
That's right.
conversation and you create space in
That's
the
right.
person, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She said, I think, I know, I believe. You know what I mean? She said
Yeah.
those things are
She
Yes.
powerful,
progressed. Yeah.
and again, thank you, Camille. You blessed us, and anyone who's in earshot of your message, I think will be enhanced by
Aaron, I
it.
see words falling out of your mouth. What do you want to
Oh
add?
man, I was gonna nerd out here for a moment. She went into a third space.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about like I watched The Voice. That's like one of my guilty pleasures. I watched The Voice. And one of the pieces about The Voice is that you can't see the person. So you
Right.
just hear them. And that means you have to listen more intently because your other senses, you can't rely on your other senses. And so hearing her speak made me rely on her words, her voice, even her cadence, the speed at which she spoke, and the way she emphasized certain words, but didn't have to raise her voice, but she emphasized them with like what was in her. And so I felt like she had gone to a third space, and then I actually went there,
Yeah.
you know,
She
and
took us on
just
her journey.
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Yes, she did.
Absolutely.
And how great is it to create with another person
Yeah.
by letting
Absolutely.
them lead you down their own path? Like it's
Mm.
just
Yes.
really inspiring. And Spence, I think you said something that helps lead us like effortlessly into our
Mm.
next segment, which
Mm.
is she's created space for us, right? And
Yeah.
our last and third question,
Mm.
which is what I fielded with the people that I asked, was how do you create space for other people
Mm.
to either express their emotions or to hear them, particularly when you're not always in agreement with them, right? So I have two people. One is a Gen Z young person. So I think it's great to bring that age demographic into this conversation. And one is my sister-in-law who also created the logo for the show. So mad love and shout out to Nikki for all of her contributions. So we're going to hear first from Jasmine, our Gen Z participant, about what she does to create space for other people as they are emoting and figuring things out.
Hi, my name is Jasmine, and for me, making space and empathizing with others is to truly listen. I like to make sure that I put others before myself, and I don't just listen to respond, I listen to understand. I want people to know that they are being heard and that their feelings are validated and that this is a free judgment zone. I also like to make sure that people know that they have my full attention, whether that is doing a small gesture or saying a comforting word or just sitting with them in silence if that is what is needed for them. And I also just like to spread my kindness. I want people to know that they are being heard and that they are valued. And I strive to do this every single day. Thank you.
I mean, they keep
Short
it
but
simple,
sweet.
right? Right? Didn't
Short but sweet and powerful.
powerful? Didn't Leslie say in hers that like those Gen Z people, nothing phases them, right? Like she's got so much zen and she's 20 years
Yeah.
old. She's
Like matter of
20.
fact, like this is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And
You
this
gotta
is
listen
what
to
it should.
people.
This is what it is. I mean, listen. I just words. I mean, I heard selflessness in there.
Mm.
Selflessness. I don't put myself first. I don't center myself first. I center other people's voices, and when I hear those voices, I listen to not respond but understand, and spread kindness so people feel valued. That's the
Mm.
whole show.
Yeah,
It is.
right? Like she embodies everything we're trying to do. And man, she gives me hope because
Yeah.
she's 20, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So when I was 20, sure, I had lots of ideas and thoughts, but at 20, I was often ready and willing to debate people, to take
Yeah.
them down,
Yeah.
to let them know that they needed to be schooled about something.
Yeah.
And I find that there's a lot of empathy in this generation. And I think one
Yeah.
of our other speakers shared this, right? Like there's a lot of concern, a lot of awareness, a lot of, social just actions and mindset in this age group. So I just love that Jasmine kind of infused a little bit
Yeah.
of hope for all of us and for all of
Yeah.
our listeners too,
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
what we can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. 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 She's 20. She's in school.
She's 20. She's becoming a physician's assistant. And I just think that that's
Wow.
great too, because that's what she's creating, right?
Yes.
Think about
Oh.
that in the healthcare world. Think
Yes.
about that,
Man.
particularly for people who encounter
Man.
depletion of kindness, right?
Right.
In when they're sick or when they're struggling. So I
Yeah.
just, wow, what a gift.
That's special, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about a bedside manner that is healing in and of itself.
Right.
To just have that, you're talking about someone who might be unwell or in temporary dis-ease or whatever. I mean, that attitude and that presence itself can be healing. And
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
man, kudos to her. Kudos to her. She'll be a physician's assistant, and I think what's the name of the physician assistant or the doctor who was a doctor for old people? Is that?
Geriatrics is the
Yeah, well,
area
a
of study.
geriatric. I'll never see her. She'll
Oh,
never
who
be
knows?
she'll never
Maybe
be
she'll
a doctor's
become
office for me.
a geriatric PA.
I'll be
You
old.
never
I
know.
don't know if she'll be in a geriatric office.
She'll come and take care of all of us.
My dermatologist has a physician's assistant. I didn't even know they did it for dermatology.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
so it
They do it for everything. So they're
Yeah.
What-
No. Kudos to her. And the fact that she's Soraya's friend is not
Oh yeah, my daughter, yeah.
is not a surprise. Not
Uh-huh.
a surprise.
Thank
Because
you.
like attracts like. And so thank her for us.
We will.
Hope to meet her one day.
Aaron, jump in.
Absolutely. I was just going to say when we have these misconceptions at times about like people from different generations, and so the fact that she talked about those things that you listed, Spencer, but making space, truly listen, full attention, like we may be thinking of like Gen Z is like, oh, they don't listen, they
Right,
don't
they're
hear
always on
us
their
out.
phone, right?
Yes, she just broke that paradigm. She just broke that paradigm, and to really be as direct as she was. She said a lot in that very short time. And thinking about, so we make these comparisons between like Gen Z and Gen X, or like we're very verbose,
Right. Right.
She was right into the point and packed a punch like in that short time.
It's very true. And I've done road trips with her
Mhm.
because we've traveled to watch my daughter play soccer like 3-4 hours at a time. And she truly walks the walk. Like she literally listened. She was very empathetic. She asked probing questions. I could do the same for her. There was no phone. I mean, I was driving, but she was
Mhm.
not like scrolling on her phone and disengaged for 3.5 hours on our way, to the game. So and back. So I was just, it's delightful to have such an example of hope and what
Yes.
we can lean into, especially when we're feeling that anxiety and despair. Let's lean into
Absolutely.
our youth
Yeah.
and let's create space to listen to them and
Mhm.
let them guide us
Yeah.
into the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Absolutely.
next,
With good energy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the next one is my sister-in-law, Nikki, like I said, and she is the one who designed our logo for this show. So we are grateful for her on so many levels. But this nugget, and we've all heard it, but our listeners are going to hear it now, is incredible, and we'll have some thoughts to share as well after.
How do I make space for and empathize with others as they share their emotions? I have to assume that we're talking about emotions that are counter to my beliefs or my emotions about a particular topic. Certainly, if we were in agreement, then there wouldn't be any real need to make space for that. I could just commiserate. So, if we assume that these emotions run counter to my ideologies, then I've been accomplishing that a couple of ways. For a long time, one of the things that I read once that it just sits on the forefront of my mind. I don't know, it imprinted on my brain. A while back, I read a quote from Bill Nye, the Science Guy, Dave Bill Nye. And it was something like, everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't. Your job is to figure out what that something is. And that's just imprinted. So now when I meet someone who I think maybe is very different from me, or I don't know, maybe they're awkward, maybe they're neurospicy, who knows? Even when I find them loudly opinionated, I'm able to find the curious parts of my brain and set all the other things aside and ask myself, what do they know that I don't? And then that just opens floodgates. Then I want to build a superhighway from their ideas to my brain so that I can access as much of their knowledge as possible, that I can A, learn from, and B, facilitate some commonalities and some things that, might unify us, despite our differences. And the other thing that's a little more recent that I've been meditating on lately, is I read a meme that talked about how, like, our hemoglobin is a protein that has 4 iron atoms. And hang on, here we go. Iron is only naturally produced in one place. It can only be forged in the core of dying stars. Every time you look at your veins, remember that you are built from and kept alive by pieces of stardust. And that idea has helped me immensely, especially recently in the environment, today's climate. I have been able to meditate on, like, when I'm feeling sleepless or full of anxiety or depressed, that I have stardust in my veins, and I breathe it in and I breathe it out. I have stardust in my veins. I have stardust in my veins. I am made of stardust. And then when I encounter people who I feel opposite from, knowing maybe we see things from very different viewpoints, I can then meditate on, again, they have stardust in their veins. They have stardust in their veins. They are made of stardust. And when I realize then we're both made of stardust and we're all made of stardust, and from dust we came, and to dust we shall return, as above, so below, as without, so within, it makes it a lot easier to allow for them to express their emotions, even when maybe I find them abrasive. Because we are stardust, and one day we'll be unified stardust, so we'll return to one another. So that's it. That's how I'm leaving room for people to express their emotions, and I'm not always great, but I'm working on it. And I know you are too. Love and light.
We are Stardust.
Wow. What a way to end these comments, you know. Like you said, it's a journey. You know, she said it. I was thinking, and then she said it. And it really is a invitation and a challenge for all of us, that to know that even the ones that we, and I love the way Nikki said, she was very gentle in saying the ones that feel opposite than me. You know what I mean? Or the ones we vehemently disagree with, that they have stardust too.
And that we're going to return to each other, right?
That we're gonna return to each other and be
That's my favorite part.
unified stardust.
That's my favorite part.
That right there, you'll drop the mic on that one.
Well, it's kind of like why we can't just erase the people we don't like.
No.
And while we do have to stay in community and build each other up in communities
Mhm.
that support and love and protect, we
Yeah.
also have to realize that the world is made up of multiple communities, and that we all have that stardust, that light on the inside of us, right?
Yeah.
So, like she said, Bill Nye is like, how do you have to figure out what the other person knows? That might
Yeah.
be their light, right? That
Mhm.
might exist in their stardust, right? Like that
Yeah.
knowledge might be just something incredibly personal to them. It doesn't mean it has to be something that would be cited in an encyclopedia or in a textbook or in a course. It just means that they possess unique individual
right.
qualities, knowledge, and brilliance,
Mhm.
beauty. And it's
Mhm.
our job to get that out of them. And hopefully they can get it out of us. But our
Yeah.
jobs is to get it out of each other, right? And
Mhm.
It is. And you know what, y'all, the thing is, Nay, we can't recognize it or even see it unless we talk to somebody else.
right.
Unless we come outside of our comfort zone and communicate and get to know someone else, you know, then you can't sit back at arm's length and just be like, well, they got stardust too. No, if you wanna, when you're talking about unify that stardust, then you have to communicate, you have to talk, you have to be in a space with them, you have to take a risk,
Yeah.
you know.
It makes me think about the moment in Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, when the guy came over to, help her out. I think she had a leak or something,
Oh, right. Yeah.
and the he had a MAGA hat on, and so from the beginning she was like, "How do I get to this guy? Like, how do I reach him? How do I see the humanity in him?" Even though she politically was opposed to him, how
Right.
does she see the humanity in him to find a way that they can connect? And she found it.
Yeah. And
That's one of my
possibly,
favorite scenes.
yeah, it's a
Yes.
great
That movie,
scene,
that's one of my favorite
Absolutely.
scenes.
right? And she could have been feeling terrorized in that moment,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Like Camille talked about. She could have been
Mhm.
feeling fear in the moment, like
Yeah.
Leslie talked about.
Yeah.
She could have been feeling, sadness and anxiety that we heard like from Tiff. And if we channel into these comments of staying present, focusing, listening, finding that stardust, being
Yes.
kind, it will come back to us,
Yes.
right? It will come back to us and we can move forward as humanity. And I know that might sound a little, idealistic and a little like, oh, well, sure, these three on this podcast think it's just like that easy, because
Yeah.
it's not. It's
No.
not. You have to be really intentional. But if you do that mantra and you do that meditation and you remind yourself constantly that these people too have brilliant stardust in them, right? These
Mhm.
people too need to be validated and valued. These people
Yeah.
too need to be heard. We create space then to listen and
Yeah.
hear. That type of space will be reciprocated,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
And
cool.
it's not easy
And not
because
necessarily by that person,
no,
but maybe by somebody else for
That's
you.
right.
absolutely. I'm glad you said that. It's not easy for any of us to do,
Right.
right?
No.
Like, we are
Mhm.
practicing. We're not saying anything that we aren't practicing ourselves.
Right.
Like that we're not actively engaged in on a daily basis trying to find that humanity in others. And I can't speak for you two in this regard, but for me, I see people with these bumper stickers and I immediately go to a place like, man, this, it on a day-to-day basis, I have to work at how do I make sure that I don't lead with that so that if I'm trying to connect with another human being, if I have a certain countenance on my face or I have a certain position or if I have a certain, way that I say things, now I'm not with disrespect and all of that
Right.
stuff, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that we all have to continuously find places and spaces to do that, to connect
Yep.
with another
Yeah,
person.
we have to feel our emotions, right? Because when we resist our emotions, we resist being human. That is a quote from Maxter, not me, but
Mhm.
like that truly is something we have to think about, right? Which is why we focus today on emotions and how
Yeah.
emotions can lead to
Mhm.
creation. So, Aaron, I want to lob it back over to you. I'm going to share my
Yes,
screen. So, for those
yes.
of us watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this if you're joining us just on, Spotify. What we're showing right now is a wheel um, that really expresses or captures all of the emotions um, that we process as people. And this wheel was developed by Gloria Wilcox. The um, the site is on the bottom of the wheel here. And Aaron, talk a little bit about what this wheel is and how we can use it to help process emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'll be quick. It's just, many times we're feeling something, but it doesn't fall within those more common ways that we express our emotions. So the middle, the middle part of the wheels is mad, scared, joyful, powerful, peaceful, and sad. So those are more common emotions. Like we can really identify and articulate when we're feeling one of those things. But the outer ring, the outermost ring, speaks to ways that we might be feeling that we can't fully put our finger on, but it may be related to one of those other core feelings. So, for an example, I may be feeling foolish about something. So you see foolish, I might be feeling foolish about something, but I don't know that it's connected to being scared. And so I may be embarrassed about something, or I got embarrassed about something today. Literally, I got embarrassed about something today that I should have known, and I made a gesture that I thought was a positive one, and it turned out to be against someone else's culture. So I was really embarrassed. I was really embarrassed by that.
Mm.
But it wasn't until I kind of processed it a little bit to understand that that is what I was feeling. Like I
Mhm.
drove out of the parking lot feeling, I'm like, this is not feeling good to me. And I didn't know what it was.
Right.
And so, as we continue to process through our own feelings, and whatever way you process through it, you can go into that ring that goes a little bit inside of that. Their emotions like feeling rejected or confused or helpless or
Mhm.
submissive. Like these are things that we may not fully either understand or are willing to admit. It's easy for us to admit we're feeling scared about something, but it's not so easy for us to admit that we're feeling helpless. Or
Right.
it's not
Mhm.
so easy for us to admit that we're feeling rejected. Like when someone said something that felt rejected. It's not so easy to admit that, but it's all within a feeling family, if you will, that we can process those really nebulous type of emotions and connect it to something else that really feels a little bit more concrete.
So you're saying we
Mhm.
got to unpack, right? And kind of
Yes.
figure this out and particularly when we're encountering and dialoguing with people that trigger us
Yeah.
and that figure out that feeling, figure out where it's radiating from, and then unpack it. Maybe you felt really skeptical about something somebody said and work that through this wheel and figure out, well, it's
Mhm.
because maybe that skepticism was really being driven towards feeling hateful and critical, and then you
Yeah.
get mad and all of a sudden you have a chip on your shoulder with this person. If you don't work through that, you haven't connected those dots, you haven't gone through the ring, you haven't processed through those emotions in order to create the intimacy that's necessary
Man.
to move forward, right? And the way we're going to create that intimacy is dialoguing with one another, but also being aware of our emotions and kind of this wheel. So we offer this to all of you as a resource to process through emotions. Again, the source is here on YouTube if you're watching. We will also cite it on the notes in our Spotify episode description so that you can go ahead and find it for yourself and kind of dig into it.
Hey, I want all the listeners to know that we work hard at not because we have the same thoughts sometimes. We work hard at not. See, you'll say a word that I've written down, so we try not to. So sometimes you'll just see me like, man, I just wrote that down. I just wrote intimacy down because what I like about that circle. So you've heard it said that intimacy is like into me see, right? It's like into me see. You know what I mean? That is really being
I
intimate.
never have heard that. So
No,
you
I have
tell
not.
me something, but
Into me see, when you can be really allow someone to see who you are inside. But I like the circle too, because it's true for all of us
right.
that to be intimate with ourselves. And so I like the way the outer feelings that you go inside, that you go closer to the core to figure out what you're really feeling.
Right.
Because if you don't, those outer feelings can be directed outside at everybody else.
Sure.
You can start snapping at your mate. I can start saying something. I can emotionally withdraw from because I haven't really gone inside to identify what the core feeling is.
Right. And if you
I love
only
that.
have the
I love it.
language of the core feelings,
That's right.
then you got to go out and say, well, what's really happening
Yeah.
for me and how am I
Yeah.
projecting this
Yeah.
core feeling
Yeah. It's all
on other
intimacy.
people? Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
I'm
And
going to say something facetious here.
Yeah.
oh,
I'm so glad that my friends are smart. Like no, I really am. Like that is profound. No, and I'm being genuine.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
profound.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
to be involved in these type of conversations where people are having these smart conversations all the time, like I'm so
Yeah.
blessed.
Yeah,
Aw.
man,
really
we're
am.
all
we
we're
feel the
all
same
creating that
way.
energy. We feel the same. We're all creating that energy together, and man, man, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up. And I know you're going to read the quote, our closing quote soon, but I just want to thank everybody because I think the listeners are going through, are practicing listening as well, to listen to all those stories, to listen to us, to have the patience to listen to those voices, to stay with it is what it's all about too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think it's been a great show to hear different voices, to hear
Yeah.
different reflections, and we want to encourage you all to share your voices and reflections with us. So before we wrap up, we really want to remind you that we have a page. It's called speakpipe.com/endless evolution. You can go there and you can record your thoughts, your voices, your ideas, because we want to incorporate those in the show every chance we get. So again, it's speakpipe.com/endless evolution. Record a message for us, ask a question, give us your thoughts, and we feel more of the community when we can incorporate all of you in this episode or in the next episode or in any episode that comes. We're excited because soon we're going to have some invited guests and we're going to let you know that. But we also want to do some lives. So the more that you interact with us, the more we can create this brilliant, supportive, loving community centered on, evolving humanity together. So we just really want to thank you. We always like to end on a positive note. So to that end, we come up with quotes or find quotes. And Spence brought this one to the table, and it says, being human is a given, but keeping our humanity is a choice.
Mm.
Being human is a given, but keeping our humanity is a choice. Choose wisely, friends. Choose to feel your emotions. Choose to process those emotions. Choose kindness, and choose to see that stardust in every single person that comes in your path.
Thank you, Amy, to everyone.
That's great.
Listen, we'll see you again. Until next time, stay balanced, keep healing, and keep evolving. Keep evolving. We love you. Peace and love.
Much
I
love.
love that.
This episode of Endless Evolution is brought to you by the No Harm Organization, uplifting wholeness and humanity. Our featured music is Humanity by Lava La Rue.